Tomorrow marks the 90th anniversary of one of the most catastrophic mining disasters in Michigan history. And that tragedy was right here in Marquette County, just northwest of Ishpeming. In part one of a two-part series, ABC 10's Chelsea Birdsall takes an in-depth look at the Barnes-Hecker tragedy.
It was a trap that had been set unknowingly. Nobody knew it. If they did, obviously, they wouldn't have done it. But it was just a tragic series of events that led to what had happened.
At 11:20 a.m. on November 3rd of 1926, a scheduled blast went off from deep within the Barnes-Hecker mine. An underground deposit of water was hit by the blast, releasing a mass of mud and debris, flooding the mine within just 10 minutes. 51 men lost their lives after being trapped underground. Just one man, Rutherford Wills, escaped tragedy that day after he climbed 800 feet up a ladder to the surface in just 10 minutes. A handful of bodies were recovered, but the mine still remains a burial site for the other 41 men. The affected families were severely devastated in the wake of the tragedy, as many lost multiple loved ones. Mary Tippett is a descendant of two miners who died, as well as Rutherford Wills, the only survivor. If things had timed out differently, the Tippett family could have lost 4 men in the accident.
Many of the families were so distraught and so stressed by what happened that they just couldn't talk about it and didn't talk about it with their kids. My family was lucky because my grandmother talked about it. My dad and my aunts talked about it. They took us to the lake that formed and we laid flowers there on Memorial Day.
42 widows, 4 of which were pregnant, and 132 children under the age of 18 were left to mourn their loss.
The suffering that those families felt from losing a loved one, they lost support, they lost companionship to the children, they lost daddy, and that's really the tragedy in this whole thing.
The tragedy lives on through the family trees of several Ishpeming and West Ishpeming families who have ties to the catastrophe. Negaunee resident Ronald Perella lost his 2 great uncles in the tragedy 5 years before he was born. The Lampshire descendant also worked in the conjoining Morris mine.
That Barnes-Hecker was hooked to the Morse mine with a raise, and that raise is where 7 bodies got pushed down that raise, and they found them in the Morse mine on the 6th level, and they had to build a new dam there to hold back the water and mud and whatever it was coming from the Barnes-Hecker mine.
And in the mid-1950s, Perella was one of the workers that helped fix that dam that had deteriorated in the decades since the tragedy.
I walked into the old dam that was leaking, and I put my hands up on the cement wall of the dam, you know. I was thinking that, well, here I got relations on the other side of that cement wall, and I'm on this side building a new dam, you know.
November 3rd would have been the last day in the mines for the Lampshire brothers, who had just completed their 2 weeks' notice.
It's nice to be able to pass on history, you know, and if you don't do it, it's lost. It gets lost, you know.
Several events were planned by a group of local historians and descendants to not only commemorate the anniversary of the tragedy and other mining accidents, but to honor the fallen miners' families as well as their descendants. In part 2, we will take a look at the efforts of the planning group and the community support that followed their endeavors as they gathered the puzzle pieces which brought them together. Reporting from Ishpeming for ABC 10 in the CW5, I'm Chelsea Birdsall.